Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of The Steampunk Philosopher with your host, Steampunk Nicky. Steampunk Nicky Pringles, back in the game. Episode 2, baby. We made it. Muscully Skokin, best co-host in the universe. Here we go. Are you ready? So, as promised, today's episode is going to be based on Plato's Cave, which is an allegory written by Plato in the Republic. It was originally published, more or less. So, throughout the time that I do this show, I like to introduce philosophical concepts, things that I've read, whether it be from, philosophers of old, new age thinkers, just anyone that's inspired me in general. I use all these things to build my constructs and help my thought process and to grow and to change. So I'm not going to be doing deep breakdowns of their work necessarily. I'm just going to encapsulate what their work was so I could use it to kind of make my own points. That's why I call myself the steampunk philosopher, because my philosophy is inspired by all these influences, but also generated from my own experience and my own points of view. Fair? All right. So Plato's allegory of the cave, this is the long and short of it. There's a bunch of people that live inside of a cave, and they don't realize that the inside of the cave is not the rest of the world. And inside the cave, there is a fire lit. The fire casts shadows on the walls of the people that are in the cave, of animals from outside, trees, life, etc., etc. These people, because they've never been outside the cave, are thoroughly convinced that all of reality is the shadows they see on the wall cast by the fire. And that's all the light that they have, okay? So they have deep discussions. They break down these shadows. They talk at length, ad nauseum, if you will, about the things that they're seeing. They have all these high-minded, highfalutin discussions about it, et cetera, et cetera. And one day, somebody escapes the cave, right? He breaks his shackles, makes his way out of the cave, takes the journey up to the surface, right? And outside, he sees the entire natural world, right? So he's blown away. Beautiful blue skies, raging seas, right? Greenery, brilliant flowers, red, colors that he's never seen before, detail he's never seen before, and his eyes are immediately open. And he goes, wow, my whole life was spent in the cave and I had no idea. He's now enlightened. He's so excited. He has this new knowledge. He has this new experience. He can't wait to go back and tell everybody in the cave that the rest of the world exists. And he goes back to free his friends, to free not just their experience that they're having physically, but the experience they're having in their mind, to accept more, to see more, to be more, and to taste and touch and feel more. He goes back down there, tells them what he saw, tries to explain his experiences and what he's seeing on the surface world. What do you think he's met with? Same as any type of great thinker that comes way ahead of their time, that is trying to enlighten the world. Criticism, skepticism. They called him crazy. He was mocked, derided. They literally cast rocks at him and threw him out at some point in time. Meanwhile, he's just there for their benefit, trying to help them become enlightened. So that is basically the allegory of Plato's Cave. There's a lot more detail in it. If you want to read it for yourself, grab the book Plato's Republic, or just look up Plato's Cave online, and you could do a deep dive on it. But I just wanted to kind of delineate the point of it, to make a couple of other points. So Plato's Cave is one of the most profoundly true philosophical constructs I have ever read. It has some of the most meaning I've ever gained from any of the writings and readings that I've ever read, like I just said before, and it's extremely powerful. So basically, there are multiple types of caves, Plato's Cave, if you will, and some of them are mental, some of them are physical, and everything is a microcosm of a microcosm inside of a microcosm. Everything is an infinity, everything is and is not at the same exact time. All of reality is a paradox. Every time you break out of one cave and become enlightened in a new capacity, I guarantee you, you've stepped into another cave, probably with broader dimensions and more horizons, but you're in another cave nonetheless, and you probably aren't even aware of it. And this isn't about right or wrong or who's smarter or who's not smarter. This is just about understanding the nature of reality and using this principle to diagnose where you're at and help yourself grow and become enlightened. Very powerful tool. And also it helps you understand as well the way that people are going to react to you when you are breaking through these cave walls and seeing greater worlds and greater color and greater texture and, downloading greater information in your subconscious, in your mind, your spirit, and your being, and then expressing that outward to people that are at lower states of consciousness. Keep in mind, lower does not mean worse or bad. That's not what it is. So to illustrate my point in a couple of ways. Think about it when you're a kid, right? You're 7, 8 years old. You're hanging out with your little buddies at your house. The parents are having a get together. So you're surrounded by all these adults. They're drinking wine. They're hanging out by the fireplace. Maybe they're smoking cigarettes if you're from my generation. And you're playing with your little buddies. They're having adult conversations that are so outside your scope of reality, of consciousness, that they could say whatever they want, basically right in front of you, and you won't even be able to process it. So now, The only difference in this time and space that is being occupied by the young ones and the older ones is the state of consciousness that they're in, their ability to perceive and understand and hold higher concepts in their mind. The physical reality and the time space, if you will, is exactly the same. There's nothing changed at all, just the difference in the levels of consciousness and what they're able to perceive. So when you're a kid in the same room as the adults and you can't understand what the adults are talking about, that doesn't mean that what the adults are talking about doesn't have texture, truth, robustness, and its own rules and circumstances and things that you can't even entertain in your mind. It's still all happening. So one of the best explanations I've heard someone say about this, I forgot where I picked it up from, but someone goes, think about a dog. A dog doesn't know that the internet exists, and it's totally a thing. Like it's a huge part of all of our lives. Most of our lives are spent on it at this point in time. But if you're a dog, you don't even know how to do www. anything. You don't even know this whole world is even out there. It's just lost on you. Why is that? Because of the dog's state of consciousness and the capacity that it has to receive this information and to understand. So the reason I'm telling you this, and like I'm saying that everything is a microcosm inside of a microcosm, is because we are in an ever-changing state of expanding consciousness. And there are caves inside of caves, even in that realm. So there is our singular consciousness, which would be you as an individual per se, or what you think is an individual. We'll get into that in more detail at some point in time. It's actually not true at all. We're all made out of one thing, which a lot of us know, but more of us are going to find out. And then and then as you get older, right, and you expand into higher and higher states of consciousness, you're able to perceive more and more and more. There's no reason to think that this trend will ever cease, right? Just like when you were 2 years old, then when you were 5 years old, you understood more. When you were 10, you understood more. When you were 20, you understood way more than that. 30, 40, 50, etc. The only thing that limits the amount of caves that we could break through in the higher and higher states of consciousness is, number one, where we start off when we're born and where the collective conscious of the entire world is, or all of reality, more or less. So as I mentioned before, the singular conscious is one of the caves. There's also group consciousness and collective consciousness. So think about it like... All right, so think about in your own head, right? You have different moods, temperaments, feelings, points of view, theories, beliefs. All of them are kind of operating at the same time, weaving in and out of each other and conflicting with each other. Sometimes some voices or some beliefs are stronger than others. Some perceptions are stronger than others. Some are weaker than others. Some of them flip-flop back and forth. Things change as things go. So in your own mind, you are a collective of different thoughts, processes, emotional states, points of view, beings, more or less. Because depending on which one is driving at that point in time, which one is the dominant psychology in that moment, is your operating force. But it's all informed by all the other operating forces that are actively inside of you as well. That doesn't stop inside the singular person. That's just magnified by now there's 2 people in a room, 3 people in a room, 7 billion people in the world, et cetera, et cetera. And there are different layers of frequencies that all have their own bandwidth that we're operating on. And depending on where your vibrational state is in your mind is what you're gaining access to in your reality. And the collective consciousness feeds down and affects the singular consciousness, but the singular consciousness also affects the collective consciousness as well. That's why these great philosophers and thinkers that I'm so happy to bring to you and to discuss with you, and hopefully we can all gain and grow from their wisdom and generate our own as well, not just stop where they left off. They just built a foundation, is so important. You get one guy that comes along like a Friedrich Nietzsche, right? Or an Arthur Schopenhauer, or someone of this magnitude, Aldous Huxley, the list goes on and on and on, and their works can shape and mold an entire generation's consciousness and increase the overall collective consciousness to higher and higher states of awareness. And what do you think happens when higher and higher states of awareness are reached? Whether it's in the collective scale or the singular scale, it's just what we talked about. It's the same thing as when you're a kid at 8 years old versus when you graduate to 15, 18, and 20. This never ceases. So the goal of humanity is to actually understand that we're inside these caves and these microcosms, to analyze our surroundings, to gain wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, to grow and to change, to follow our hearts and to listen so we can expand into higher states of consciousness. Unfortunately, we've gotten so wrapped up in the physical game and the necessity to live on a day-by-day basis that these higher ways of thinking are tuned down. And I seek to destroy that, to free people from these bondages so we can actually engage in these conversations and raise the collective consciousness even higher still, so we can bestow that on our children and our grandchildren, and they could pick up the ball from here and go up instead of where we picked it up, which is from here and then go up, right? So we could do this work together just by understanding these things. If anything that I'm saying to you right now, even if you don't fully believe it or you have questions about it, if it's even remotely resonating with you, I invite you to look inside yourself and just ask your own subconscious. Trust yourself. It's on my thumbnails. Trust yourself. Yourself is a lot more than you realize currently, okay? ask yourself to be shown, like, what does this mean? Is there really something to this? Just pray to yourself. You don't even have to share it with anyone. Just do it alone in your own head. I guarantee you will get an answer at some point in time, and it will be unignorable. Unignorable? Is that a word? It will be unignorable, and you will get an answer, okay? As long as you're doing it genuinely from your heart and staying open, these things will be shown to you. So that's the first point that I wanted to make, and I would like everyone to reflect on that, or share in the comments. What do you think about what I'm saying? Do you think it's BS? Have you had any experiences with it at all? Like and subscribe to the show. Let's get this out there so we can keep these conversations going. And again, take the ball back from the mainstream nonsense and get out of those anger and hatred and start having productive conversations together here with Nicky Pringles, the steampunk philosopher. Let's go. Microcosm 2, the physical realms. So think about it like this. 1,000 years ago, less than that, 500 years ago, we could see space and we kind of understood that, there was something more than just this earth, but we have no idea. We had no idea that there was unlimited amounts of galaxies, unlimited amounts of stars, other realities, that time and space overlaps itself, and that there's an infinity all in one condensed area, and it expands ever so, and it contracts ever so. These are things that quantum mechanics, modern science, space travel, technology, measuring tools such as telescopes, you name it or whatever it is. This is how we've come to these new understandings and this new knowledge. But what makes you think for 1 second? So you break out of the microcosm that is Earth, right? We take a rocket, we go out to space, and we float right by the atmosphere, and we can see a couple of planets and a couple of stars, right? Let's take let's go even further still. Let's take our most advanced equipment that can measure hundreds and hundreds of millions of light years away. Let's get to that endpoint. Do you really think if you get there and you take one more step forward, there's not a whole nother reality of infinites? Of galaxies, of worlds, of planets that operate under different rules, the same rules, time, no time. There is an infinite amount of possibilities, and I guarantee you they all exist, and they're all happening at the same time, always. So these are the caves, right? So we only know what we can see and touch because we're interfacing through this avatar that we're in now. Spoiler alert, it's just an avatar. We're made up out of this infinite energy that is infinite consciousness, and we take on identities, and we come here to learn and to grow and to experience, amongst many other things that I'm sure I don't even know yet. This is just stuff that I've tasted and that I'm aware of. And when we come here, think of this apparatus like a restriction or a governor, right? So say you have, this is perfect. Say you have a Ferrari, and the Ferrari engine can make 1,500 horsepower, and it has a max speed of 380 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 1.5 seconds. But someone comes along and sticks a governor on it, right? And now it can only do 60 miles an hour on the freeway. It can only go 0 to 60 in 8 seconds. Boo, right? And it's basically just more or less a pig. There's nothing wrong with the hardware at all. The hardware has the power. The hardware has everything that it needs to run, to do that 380 miles an hour, to do 0 to 60 in 1.5 seconds. It's powerful. It's amazing. But the governor restricts it down to its basis abilities. That's what this is. That's what this human consciousness and this framework is, and this mind is. It's a Plato's cave. So when we come down here, we remarkably restrict our awareness down to this tiny decimal point that we're seeing it through now. And even that remarkably grows and changes throughout our little tiny life on this planet. So imagine that. So just suspend your judgment for one moment and just make believe that I'm telling you the truth, and imagine the possibilities of what's really going out there. When you hear this new age idea that people always throw around about the higher self, it's not a new age idea. We're just hearing it more frequently because it's becoming more popularized, because our minds are more open to these concepts, because we're ready to evolve and to grow and to hit these higher peaks. That's the only reason why I'm sitting here right now. That's the reason why my voice is reaching anybody. That's the reason why my show exists. It's the reason why I exist. I'm just another one of these voices lending to the Sherpaing of a higher state of being. And I just want to help us all get there along the way and just get out of Dodge and leave it a better place than when I came. But there's a reason why all these people are starting to rise, like myself and other people that are out there already, ascended masters and speaking out. It's time. You can feel it in your soul. I know you could feel it quaking inside of you. I'm not the only one. It's not lost on me. But we have to get out of this weird hypnosis that they've put us in of keeping us living check to check and afraid for where our next meal is going to come from, and can we take care of our kids, and I have to go to work and I can't call in sick. I was taught not to be lazy. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Got no time to think about anything else. Are the bills paid? Did you take the kids to school? Is the lawn mowed? All these things are occupying your mental real estate in such a profound way that you're not able to hear that voice inside and turn it to higher and higher states of consciousness automatically. dramatically. Now we've been put in a system that is so corrupt by lower states of vibration, by lower states of consciousness, which embody fear, lack, oppression, repression, dictatorship, things of this nature, these terrible characters that you're seeing, that you have to make a conscious effort to look inside yourself, to quiet your mind, to go and meditate, to take a walk, spend time away from all this stuff as much as possible, to reconnect that phone line to your higher self and to that which is the infinite of reality. It's a Plato's cave, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Plato's cave. You're in one. I'm in one now. We're all in one. The only difference is we can be aware of it. And fun fact about psychology in general. First of all, literally everything is psychology. Even this physical world that exists was birthed from a mind, which we can get into in the future. I won't get too deep into that right now. But so think about your whole reality and how it's organized. So imagine God made a playground, right, out of physical material, which at its root is energy. It's just we perceive it this way. We'll get into that later. But so physical material, and it rejuvenates itself infinitely, and it provides infinitely for all of time or until God decides that it's no longer of value, or we decide that we want to destroy it, whatever the case may be. But left to its own devices, it's this perfect world of rejuvenation, you know, of like self-consumption and autophagy and self-birth and rebirth, death, birth, rebirth, death. That's what it does. And then we get turned loose on it, and then God says, you guys can inhabit this space and all this beautiful physical matter that I've given you and these gifts of life, and you could do with it what you please. Well, the illusion is we only see the physical side of it. This is wood and that's metal and blah, blah, blah. But every single thing, every single manipulation of this world where we've taken metal and we've turned it into swords, or we've taken wood and we've turned it into tables and houses, and we built shelter, and we've taken minerals out of the ground and we've made medicines, and we've taken copper and elements from the soil and we created technology, and now we're communicating over great distances. Look at what's going on now. And we look at that and go, wow, like we need physical material to do these things. But the physical material already existed in infinites, in self-rejuvenation, and we've only reorganized it with the power of our minds. Every physical action that you take, including me lifting my hand right now or grabbing Muscully here, sorry, buddy, just to manipulate my environment and change this external reality, comes from an idea and a thought and an impulse in my head, in my psychological realm. Then that translates, gets carried out from the avatar body, and then enters into the physical world, which we think is reality. It's not true. The mind is reality, and then this comes afterwards. It's just the way that we interface in this body. This is the sensory perception that we're locked into, and it's so real and tangible here because it is here that we think that it's all that there is, and it's simply not true. It's an illusion. It's a Plato's cave, and you could see a lot of great examples all throughout history. Whenever someone has unlocked some great secret of the universe or the world, and it threatens the current belief systems or power structures that are out there, that person gets murked. I'm probably going to get killed. I'm probably going to get murked for saying this shit. I'm having the same message as all these Galileo and Bob Marley and Martin Luther King, peace and love, come together. There's greater realities out there. I'm saying Jesus. We're all having the same message and we're all getting mopped up. But I think that we're at a time now to where people are ready to hear this. And if we can collectively come to these terms and agree with this, the dominant psychology, which programs the greater reality of our environment, is going to then absorb the lower frequencies and the lesser psychologies to raise up to the higher vibrational state once we all accept this. That is my collective goal for this entire show, and the reason why it exists at all is to start basically like ushering that new era in and starting to spawn that mental process and this new psychology. And we can all talk together. We could argue. We could fight. Your boy's tough. Let's go. I'm not sensitive. We can have knockdown, drag it outs on here. But remember that it's always in service of getting to a higher state of consciousness and for the greater good. There's nothing wrong with expressing yourself, whether it be in anger or in any other type of way. As long as it's authentically from the heart, how you feel, it's going to be met with some kind of wisdom. I guarantee you it's one of the fundamental laws of reality. We'll get into that later too. I know we're getting a little heavy into the spiritual side, but that's really where this is all going to lead anyways. So Plato's cave, ladies and gentlemen, understand that you're in a cave. So am I. So is everybody. And there are caves of mental constructs and there are caves of physical constructs. And each time we break a barrier, we're going to find out that there is no limit and there is no boundary. And it just expands and expands and expands ever still. All right. So I'm going to throw in a little gem. We're going to keep this a little bit short and sweet. This is only episode 2. I'm just getting going here. I don't want to lambaste you guys with too much. And I know that a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is heavy. So it can't be overdone. But I'll give you a key, all right? If you're looking to break a cave and you're looking to break through an exterior and see a new greater reality, it only requires really one thing, but I'll give it a couple things. The number one ingredient, the thing it really requires is just a genuine desire to know. If you have a genuine operating desire to truly know, to know the truth of anything, and you acknowledge that to yourself in your subconscious, which is talking to your higher self, the universe, God, and all of the authorities of all that we cannot see will conspire to introduce this into your life to teach you these lessons and to show you what you have asked. Okay? The Bible, even though like a lot of people ridicule and mock it, they just don't understand the parables and the wisdom that is in it, is 100% true when it comes to the lessons that it teaches. And one of the primary lessons that it teaches is seek and ye shall find. That specific passage is extremely important to me. I mentioned on episode 1 that I was raised in a cult and I had to break a lot of Plato's caves to get to where I'm at now. So I've had so much experience with this. And the number one thing that's carried me through all those dark times and has brought me to the place that I'm at right now was seek and ye shall find. I was once hyper-religious, became agnostic, winded all the way back to the spiritual path that I'm on now. And at the core of it was always written in my heart one thing: go and see. Seek and ye shall find, go and see. So I invite you to seek, I invite you to find, I invite you to go, and I invite you to see. And that's it. That's episode 2 of the Steampunk Philosopher, ladies and gentlemen. I love you all. God bless. I'll be back within the next couple of days. I'm going to crank these out at a pretty good rate. We're going to keep them nice and easy and, digestible. But please, like and subscribe to the show if you think that this is valuable. Not for me. If you think this is valuable, if you think this type of discussion helps at all, if any of this touches you in any type of way, let's get this out there so we can all be a part of it. There is no my glory. Let me tell you this. Think of me like Maximus from Gladiator. My job is to steal all the power back from the corrupt powers that be, give it to the people, and then die. I don't want any of it. I want to just redisperse it, reallocate it out back to where it belongs, which is in the hands of the collective. And I just want to be out of here. I want to go home. I want to go home back from whence I came. Nicky's tired. I've been through a lot to get here, man. I want to get this done. I have a job to do, and so do you. And let's do it together. Let's get this done, ladies and gentlemen. Enough of them. It's time for us, okay? So, again, episode 2 of the Steampunk Philosopher. I hope you've enjoyed it. My beautiful co-host, Muscully Skokin, I'll be adding to these books and changing them out. Forgive me for keeping the same lineup here. I spent a lot of money on all this equipment, and I had a massive library of books that I left at one of my ex's house, if I'm being 100% authentic, which I always will be on this show. And so I'm in a state of rebuilding it, but it's literally thousands of dollars of books. So just bear with me while I build up my collection and do this show. But I hope you guys come on this journey with me, man. I really hope you do. I love you guys very, very much, and I think we all need this. And let's see, do I have a catchphrase? Do I have an outro? I would just say, you know what? Read my thumbnail. That's really what it is. Be authentic. Trust yourself. Follow your heart. Love. That's the really end game of all of it. That's really what it's all going to lead to anyways, guys. We're all waking back up. We're going to get there together, okay? But I'm going to let you go. I won't kill you with all this. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, episode 2. Love you. God bless. See you next time. Nicky Pringles, the Steampunk Philosopher. I told you I was coming in hot. I told you I was coming in hot. Oh, the powers are going to hate this shit. Peace.